really so thrilled that everyone came, and I'm really happy to have a lot of our founders and their families here with us. And I'm supposed to talk about the future, and reading the tea leaves is not always easy, but it has its advantages because very few people remember. And they don't look back to see if you were right or wrong, but then everybody knows deans are never right. In fact, I wrote a paper last year about what oceanography would look like in 2028, and about half of the predictions I made came true in 2009, so that's not very good. So I won't even try and predict what COAS will look like 50 years from now. But really what I want to do is to look a little bit and kind of pick up on John's theme, where we've been, where we are today, and think about where we might be as a college. That is, our past really might be the prologue to our future. And I'm going to look at sort of four areas. One, our scope, the scope of our science, funding, the tools we use, and our audience. And a lot of them have changed over the last 50 years. So 50 years ago, Wayne Burt posed in front of a board with a map, and he was pointing at the ocean, and many of you saw that this morning, looking off the coastal ocean with overlain by the words, "no data." And that sums up really where we began. We studied the coastal ocean, and although Wayne was a physical oceanographer, he brought in faculty who covered the waterfront. And it's worth noting that over the last 50 years, we've kept that focus on our neighborhood ocean. And this initial group of founders brought with them a real comprehensive approach, physics, chemistry, biology, and geology, and then, as John mentioned, in 1993, added atmospheric science, so that we're one of the few programs in the nation that provides an integrated approach to the study of the ocean, the earth, and the atmosphere. So that's our scope today. We focus primarily on the natural world and added with the Marine Resource Management program a layer of social and economic sciences on top of that physical science, biological science, and chemical science foundation. So what's the future? I think we're going to see more and more intense broadening of that scope. We will look to what is happening in our watersheds, how forests interact with the ocean as well as the atmosphere. In short, we will really be doing Earth system science, but it won't stop there. The interactions of people with the planet, the types of industries we create, the types of food we harvest, the types of energy we use will be both profound and pervasive. Our scope in the future must not just be the global cycles of heat, of water, of carbon, but of money, information, and people as well. So our second area is really to look at the funding and what talk about COAS would not eventually get to money. So we noted in a brochure about the RV Icona that was produced for the 1961 Portland Boat Show. Oceanography at that time was funded 90% by the federal government and 10% by the state of Oregon. And this is still true today, almost 50 years later. So in the early years, it was Office of Naval Research and soon National Science Foundation. And although the dollar amounts have increased over those last 50 years, with nearly $30 million in external grants and contracts, NSF continues to be the dominant source at about 60%. But the last few years have begun to see some important but subtle shifts. There's a bit more state funding for research. For example, the new Climate Change Research Institute, Chris Goldfinger's seafloor mapping program that you'll hear about tonight at Chris's keynote science talk. The university and the research office have made important and significant contributions in the past few years to our research infrastructure. And there is now more private funding, private foundations to support the college and its research, as well as many, many friends of the college, many of whom are here with us today. But what about the future? I think we'll see a new set of federal and state agencies as part of the funding constellation, and these agencies will need knowledge and answers to address critical policy issues. Private philanthropy, foundations, and individuals will continue to grow, but I also see more corporate interests and from unexpected business interests. Those that are maybe interested in geoengineering, construction firms that want to understand climate change and help them manage risk in the face of a changing planet. So that's the scope, the funding. What about the tools? So we started in the past with a fleet of small boats and some converted ships, but we've continuously expanded our ability to go to sea. Our ships are designed to support research, beginning with the Icona and today with the Wacoma, and tomorrow we hope with a new Oceans-class ship. But our tools include far more than ships, from moorings to seafloor coring, from microstructure sensors to Earth-orbiting satellites. Our tools have become far more capable. For example, gliders move silently through the ocean, relaying their data back via satellite. And novel techniques have been developed, such as time-lapse time-lapse movies of waves breaking on the beach, and fuel cells powered by microbes. On shore, we used to be satisfied in Burt Hall with long, skinny submarine labs and instrumentation that could last for 10 to 20 to 30 years. Today, we need clean rooms and medical-grade analytical instrumentation that can be operated from anywhere in the world and have a useful scientific life of 3 to 5 years. And don't forget computing. We were the first college at OSU to have its own computer. Eventually, we put in something called Ethernet and file servers and all sorts of machines. And when a survey was done of the faculty 25 years ago, they said, unequivocally, we will never need to attach more than 20 computers to our network. Today, we have 2,500 devices, same number of faculty, and nearly a petabyte of storage. And all of this computing infrastructure supports data analysis and a wide range of ocean and atmosphere models. So what about the tools of the future? Every dean worries about this with that little knock on the door for cost share. Certainly more sensors and more expensive, but there's going to be a change. They're going to be more capable. They're going to be operated in networks. They're going to be linked in real time to models. The tools really start to become anywhere, anytime through the internet. And measurements that we don't even know how to do or haven't even thought about or were only done in the lab are going to be done out in the field, either on ship or on these platforms. The volumes of data will increase, as well as the variety, and making sense of these data move us into an era of what many people call big data science. But it's not just in big centers. It's data that will come into our offices, our labs, and even our homes. So lastly, what about the audience? Who will we be communicating with? When we started 50 years ago, we spoke mainly to our colleagues, sometimes to ourselves, and to our federal program managers. We relied on scientific journals that were aimed at our peers and our friends. We analyzed the results of our experiments and our field programs, often publishing 2 to 3, or maybe more, years after the data were collected. With grants lasting 3 years and promotion and tenure decisions made every 6, it was a reasonable and sustainable pace of life. Today, the agencies say, what about the broader impacts of your research? Publishing is moving towards posting on the web and opening up the review process to the entire community and not just printing on paper in journals. New questions are being asked. How do we engage young people? How do we make our science have an impact on people's lives? As our research begins to touch more areas of public policy and economic importance, the more we are engaging with the public. Will we have the same audience in the future? I think it'll be far more diverse and, in a sense, unexpected. Putting more and more data and results on the web will bring in more people. We may see science being done by people not working in universities or government labs. We'll have thrown the doors open and in real time. Keeping our data and knowledge in an academic temple will likely not be possible, either by government edict or simply by our own desire to share and to collaborate. The world of the last 50 years of a constant, dependable set of tools, of 3 to 5 year timescales for analysis and publication, of a well-known set of collaborators in the scientific community, will become far more unregulated and unpredictable. Colleagues and data will come from unexpected places. The pressures for real-time knowledge and information will become intense. Publishing will move far beyond the tight control of scientific publishing houses. And more complex questions, not just even the traditional interdisciplinary questions of today, will demand more interpretation. So here's an example. Rex Burkholder, a Portland Metro counselor who served with me on the Governor's Climate Change Integration Group, asked the following: how will hurricane frequency and intensity change along the Gulf Coast? That's a straightforward physical science question. We have people in COAS who could begin to answer that. But he wanted to know more. How will these changes affect human outward migration from the Gulf Coast? How many will end up in the Portland metro area? And what will be their demographics and their socioeconomic needs? And what sort of sustainable infrastructure do I need to plan for to accommodate their working and living needs? Now that is a tough series of questions, and it really brings into focus the challenges and changes that face the college. So our broader scope then will bring together scientists and people from far more diverse backgrounds with different scientific cultures, expectations, and languages. So I expect a lot more disruption and clashes as these groups try to learn and work together. Our different funding base will bring different expectations for scientific output, timescales to develop answers, and a whole range of intellectual property issues. With advocacy groups, new sets of government agencies with regulatory issues, and businesses It is not the days of NSF and ONR. Rapidly changing tools delivering more complex data will challenge our ability to keep up technically. It will be increasingly difficult to obtain funding to keep ourselves and our technical staff up to speed and work with the latest technology. A new audience will demand more information and faster progress, and a new set of demands will emerge, such as helping the state of Oregon and the nation's economic competitiveness, broader impacts, accountability. We haven't seen anything yet. So the next 50 years might look daunting, and many of us are probably saying, how's that 403B plan looking today? New models of discovery will seek to identify patterns and relationships in far more complex data sets. The stable, predictable partnerships between the federal research agencies and the public research universities are being challenged. There will be a shifting, and in a sense, a looser network of collaborators. But on the other hand, there will be closer relationships between those who create knowledge and those who use it. And there will be even more emphasis on group achievement, not just the individual assistant professor seeking tenure. And there will be less dependence on specific fixed physical locations like universities and more on networks. It truly will be a global scale, shifting, and unruly knowledge ecosystem buffeted by the conflicting demands from different interest groups, agencies, and businesses. And in fact, many of our sister institutions are beginning to change. University of Washington is creating a College of the Environment. I call it the College of Everything. An amalgamation of oceanography, fisheries, forestry, atmospheric science, and several other programs and departments. The University of Delaware College of Marine and Earth Studies is now the College of Earth, Ocean, and Environment after its merger with the Department of Geography. The University of Miami's Rosenstiel School of Marine and Atmospheric Science intends to reduce its faculty size and pay, quote, greater attention to the undergraduate mission, unquote. Along with serious budget challenges, many oceanography programs are undergoing fundamental transformations. But I think the College of Oceanic and Atmospheric Sciences is as well positioned as any organization to confront this new world and, in fact, thrive. Maybe it was serendipity, but I like to think it was the wisdom and foresight of the men and women who founded this college. The absence of rigid departmental structures has fostered a culture of interdisciplinary research. The relative scarcity of dependable state funds has encouraged a culture of entrepreneurship. And this culture is not just restlessly seeking money. It is one that seeks out and embraces new tools to study new scientific problems. It is one that seeks out new intellectual partnerships within the college, within the university, and indeed around the world. So I end where I started, a man in a bow tie and glasses pointing at a map that says, no data. It is a vision that was based on a never-ending scientific enterprise, one that was collaborative, one that strove to be at the leading edge, and one that was determined to be useful to the people of Oregon and the nation. It is a perfect example of what we ecologists call the founder effect, that the evolution of an ecosystem is determined by the characteristics of the populations that arrive first on a new piece of land. The College of Oceanic and Atmospheric Sciences will continue to fill in those critical gaps in our map of knowledge. There will always be areas of no data. We will be seeking answers and partnerships in that terra incognita, or is it mare incognita? And we have the vision to do it. And for this vision, I thank Wayne Burt and the team of young faculty that he brought together 50 years ago in a little town 50 miles from the ocean. Thank you all for listening.